Welcome to the MR2 podcast, where we explore the world of technology and speak with industry leaders about their experiences and insights. I'm your host, James Gamble, 15 years experience in the IT world, where on this show, we're going to dive into the latest topics, trends, hottest debates, and biggest challenges facing the tech market today. With me today, Mark Szotkowski. Mark joins us from RapidScale. He joined RapidScale in 2011 as an equity partner and held several leadership roles with his tenure in the company. Prior to the acquisition by Cox Business, a division of Cox Communications, Mark served as RapidScale Chief Strategy Officer. Post-acquisition, Mark now supports the channel for the West Coast. Mark is involved in the channel since early 2000, where he founded and ran his own consulting business. Mark, nice to meet you and welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me today, James. Excited to be here with you guys.
Super excited in this inaugural first podcast that MR2 is actually posting. I'm very excited to be able to talk to awesome leaders like you. Tell me a little bit about yourself, about your background and how you got started in the industry.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks. So started in the telecom industry, which a lot of our partners have come from there as well, or in there as well today. And then I ran into one of my old colleagues from Paytech who had started this company called RapidScale. And he introduced me to his co-founder, his partner. And he said, hey, this guy knows a little bit about real estate. So try to explain what we're doing at RapidScale, but put a real estate frame around it. And this gentleman was like, hey, do you know what virtualization is? I'm like, no clue. And they explained virtualization to me in about 5 minutes. And I went, wow, that kind of makes sense. And now you're going to do what they've been doing with all these really big computers with desktops. Okay, I might be able to land on this. So that got me into my foray into IT. Went on with the two of them and came on board first as a consultant for about 5 months. And then they came back to me and said, hey, we'd love to have you join the team as an equity partner and run the company for us. So that was 2012, and I've been here with RapidScale ever since. So super excited about talking to you about who we are today and how we've changed.
That's awesome. So the virtualization factor and hearing about that tech, that kind of intrigued your interest, seeing that going to be kind of like where the industry is kind of going, or where the industry is leading.
Yeah. So side note, James, I laugh at this. I always tell people I've made 3 colossal business mistakes in my life. One of them was when I was at MFS, we had merged with a company called UUNet. Again, for those people who have been around the industry for a long time, the first commercial ISP global in the world. Mm-hmm. And I had met the CEO, John Sidgmore. John, wonderful guy, unfortunately passed away years ago. But John says to me at an event, he goes, hey, I need somebody to sell internet for me on the West Coast. And I looked at John and said, what are you, crazy? We just passed the Telecommunications Act of 1996. I'm making 80 cents on the dollar selling local dial tone. You're nuts. And I walked away from it. I saw John 2 years later when we were acquired by WorldCom at another event as a leader now. And he came back to me again and said, Mark, I need a manager for the West Coast. And I told him no a second time. I thought, like a lot of people, what is the internet? Had no vision, no clue of what this thing was going to be. How my life may have been different if I'd have jumped on that boat the first time around.
Interesting. Yeah.
But when I was talking to my co-founder and he started to explain this to me, I'm like, that looks like a duck. That quacks like a duck. This thing is going to change the world like the internet changed the world. Mm-hmm. And virtualization certainly did do that. It changed the global IT industry. So I'd like to say that, 15 years later, I was a little wiser, a little smarter. And this time when the bus stopped, I got on board and been on board ever since.
That's awesome. So really, really early adopter. I know from my company that I work for, we adopted cloud pretty early. We were one of the first restaurant chains to kind of be a fully clouded organization with no on-prem servers. We started that project around 2014, 2015. And what I still want to say, that's still kind of an early adopter. Not quite as early as you are, but even today, 2023, I know there's still a lot of businesses out there that don't utilize cloud. They still have a lot of on-prem servers, not like any type of hypervising or any type of virtual desktop like you mean. And I'm sure a lot of people listening, I'm even kind of curious, what is a virtual desktop and what does that mean? And especially with the world today of working from home, and just having that scalability to be able to give people access to applications that your business use from anywhere in the world, really, as long as they have like an actual internet connection that they can kind of remote into and have a virtualized session of a desktop with company approved apps fully secured. Yeah, I'm sure that's kind of like magic and wizardry to a lot of people.
I think you're right. I think it is. And I think people are still wrapping their arms around it, right? When we started providing virtual desktops or DaaS, right? Desktop as a service,
Yep.
because VDI is when you're doing the integration on your own gear, as you know, being an IT expert. Um, and we were talking to a lot of people and they didn't understand it. And the technology had been there for a while. Citrix had been around. Citrix, however, was just focused on the very large enterprise customers who understood what it was they were doing, required more security than the traditional mid-market SMB customers. So the technology had been there for a decade probably, but still the market didn't know what it was. You're exactly right. And I remember talking to IT directors early on and VPs of technology. And what is your biggest concern? And it was almost always, hey, securing my corporate network, right? There's no way I'm letting Tom get on my corporate network from home where he's got 3 children who are in high school who use that same computer.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
You're just begging for something horrible to happen, and not intentionally by any means, right? It's an unsecured device, and DaaS and VDI have allowed us to actually secure it. And to your point, it's any device anywhere in the world, right? I mean, we've got a lot of customers who connect with tablets and iPads all day long. That's how they work. That's where their sessions are hosted. Um, so I think when we talk about, the climate 2012, 13, 14, cloud wasn't even mainstream yet. It was just getting there. Now today, you can't go anywhere without seeing cloud or hearing cloud or looking at cloud, right? It's kind of it's certainly in the current nomenclature of everybody in society.
100%. And I think even in today's world too, it's more of something that I think you have to look at, even from like an IT perspective. And in my particular role, where I deal a lot with security, and you kind of hit the nail on the head when you talked about securing a device, and especially where we're almost primarily still majority of I say maybe like a 70-30 of remote working and actually coming into the office. And that was always one of the biggest like prioritizations that I put is to how do I protect a company approved device or just a company laptop outside of my walls where I don't have any control, where I don't have control over a regular consumer ISP or a security appliance that they don't have on a typical home network. Because like who has a Cisco router on their home network or anything like that, unless you're an IT person like me and have a crazy setup, but that's different. So
I have a little cloud device here at my house too, bro. I'm right there with you.
yeah, exactly. Right. So when we started using VDI and started using desktop as a service, it changed the game. Because not only that, now I actually save from a cost perspective, because now I only really need to provide this type of device that actually can kind of be able to sign into like a virtual desktop. So I can use like a Chromebook, like something simple, save money on that. Don't have to get like a really high-end laptop. Everything can be done in the cloud. And I save a lot of money. Plus the actual setup and onboarding is a lot more seamless and very easy to take care of too. And even offboarding, because if, once a person leaves the company, instead of worrying about getting that laptop and everything back, you just shut down the virtual desktop, and then now they don't have access to it. And then so you save your company intellectual property in that nature. We're not worrying about them being able to gain access to certain things, and it's just a lot more secure and a lot more scalability wise to be able to get that way.
Right. And the things, I mean, you and I have been doing this a long time. Roll the clock back 15 years and, everybody was issued corporate laptops.
Yep.
And we put our corporate data on those laptops and we took them and put them in our cars.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they were riding around with us. I had experiences at organizations where I worked at where, by no fault of their own, an HR person had a laptop with everybody's personal information on it that went home with her in her trunk, locked up as it was supposed to be. It got stolen, right? And the company then had to go protect 1,000 employees. Yep. for their privacy. And I think that's the big piece that when people talk about virtual desktops and DaaS as a whole, The security, and we'll talk, I'm sure we're going to talk a lot more about security, but security, I think, is today on the forefront of every IT leader's mindset, right? It is by far and away what is going to hurt me the worst if something happens. And if I do really well, I'm going to get absolutely no recognition for it.
Right. 100%.
So, you know that the role you're in.
Yep.
But we look at that, and then we start looking at not only do we get a secure connection, which is super important. There's no more data stored on that device if you set it up that way, right? So now all the data is still in the corporate world behind the firewalls, protected. And to your point, if you want to shut them down, you just turn it off and they're done. And if you don't get the $500 Chromebook back, okay, you write it off.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, we're dealing with the customer right now, and they're in a hyper growth mode. And they are like, they cannot keep up. They've got a 4-person IT staff, and they're going to grow from 400 people to 800 people. And they're like, we have no way of getting all this gear out to them. And they're looking at DaaS as the alternative there. And they're looking at BYOD, right? Just let somebody connect with whatever they have at home. If they don't have something, we're going to give them a check for $500. Tell them, here are the approved devices we'd like you to buy. And you own it after that. Right? It's yours to keep forever and ever. Amen. By the way, if you lose it or you break it, it's yours to replace, just like your cell phone is. So I think the world of mobility is certainly here, and it's just going to get faster and crazier for all of us in this industry over the next decade, I'm sure.
I agree. And I've seen different types of IT people. They're not so much with the, like you mentioned, the BYOD, to bring your own device. And I've known that's used to sound like a no-no back in the day, right? Like, who would, like, because you don't have any control over that. You can't put any of your policies, group policies, security rules around it. And it seems like just like an IT no that you want to do. But in today's world, where we have all the cloud infrastructure, now it's more common than ever. I was like, oh yeah, if you have your iPad, go ahead and use that. I think also people are kind of used to that. And I think that is kind of changing today, because I still have people coming to me where like, can I use my regular desktop in order to gain access to something? I'm like, yeah, sure, go for it. Whatever you're comfortable with. If it has an internet connection, if it's faster than what I give you, yeah, no problem. Go ahead and do that. Like, I have a, personal custom gaming rig that I mostly do my work off of. Why? Because it's fast. So it's way better than any company approved laptop that I have, and it works fantastically. Different, since I'm the actual IT guy and I can actually do that. But I'll choose that any day over a little tiny MacBook Air or a laptop or anything like that. It's
personal preference.
Personal preference, yeah.
Exactly. And when we were doing these road shows a decade ago, and I was going out to people, I was using an example. I had a couple of nieces who were in college, and they graduated college and went to work for companies. And they were given, refurbished gear that was 5 years old. And they're like, why can't I just use my MacBook that my mom and dad bought me for college? Yep. And I think that, back then it was like, to your point, it was a no-no. Hey, you're not going to bring that onto my corporate network. But now people, I just think times change, and people are much more open to doing it. And we've talked about it kind of hit and miss here, but COVID changed everything.
Oh, absolutely.
For every business out there. And for us at RapidScale, I always tell people I'm so happy that we were acquired in 2018 by Cox Business, because the amount of influx that we got when COVID hit, there was no way we would have been able to hold up to the demand that we had without having a parent company there to back us up and support us and help us out. And it wasn't people calling up and saying, I need 10 virtual desktops. It was people calling up and saying, I need 2,000.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, I need them now. How quickly can you turn these on? So it was a wild ride during COVID.
So speaking of RapidScale and stuff, we're getting a little bit more about your company, RapidScale. Tell me a little bit about, as we talked about virtualization, I think we know it's a little bit that, but more, a little bit more about how they differentiate between other current cloud providers, say like your AWS's or even your Microsoft Azure, and what exactly is their mission statement?
Yeah, so at RapidScale, we've gone through iterations of our organization over the years, right? We started off as what we call the fully managed, and we realized very quickly that was going to be a challenge, because we were so early in the industry that a lot of people were going out and doing cloud on their own. So they didn't want to pay for a managed aspect of it. So we pivoted and we came up with this 3-tiered model of support. And that's been our backbone for a really long time now. So we can go into an organization and act as if we are a public cloud company and just give them full access and keys to the kingdom and let them do everything they want to do on our gear. And that's an unmanaged solution, right? So it would be for that mid-market customer who's been running everything on VMware forever, and they don't have the ability or the knowledge or the desire to go transition to a hyperscaler, right? But they see the value of not being in the equipment game any longer. And then we had the fully managed customer, which was the customer that had very, very, very little IT. And they looked at RapidScale to do everything: patching, updates, help desk, consulting, everything they needed to do, we did for that customer. And then where the main amount of our customers landed is what we called co-managed. And what we meant by that is we would lovingly take on whatever they asked us to take on. So again, you're in this space just as we are, James. I always say it's all the stuff that no IT director or manager or sysadmin wants to do.
The grunt work.
It's the updating. It's verifying that the backups are working every single day. It's DR testing. It's all those fun things that need to be done to provide a great IT experience for their employees. And they started to realize that, hey, I can leverage RapidScale to do these things, and I can reposition my current IT staff to go and do things that impact my business more importantly than just going in there and backing and updating, 200 laptops, right? That's a full-on act if you look at it, if I have to do that as an organization. So I'd say RapidScale kind of landed on that 3-phase model. And then what we're extremely proud of, and we've been proud of it since day one, is our customer satisfaction score. So every customer, you asked what differentiates us. Every single ticket that's opened up by our customers, and we do full help desk, as I mentioned, for a lot of our customers. So we get all of the requests, everything from I forgot my password to I can't connect to my session in Citrix, you name it, we're taking all those calls. We send all of them a survey. And last year we ended at 4.87 out of 5. And we've hovered around 4.8 over the last 4 years. And that to me is a badge of honor for our company, for our support employees, for our customers. And it trues itself out in all businesses are worried about attrition of customers and churn. Sure. We run leading low churn rates, and we've been doing it for years. This last year, we were less than 1%. We were less than 1% of our customers the year before. So we're very proud to say that when we bring a customer on board, we work diligently to ensure that they're going to have a wonderful experience with us, and it pays because they stay with us, and we're not in a I'm going to leave to go somewhere else to save a couple of bucks, because they actually see the value in what RapidScale brings to them. Our little tagline we've been using for years is we become an extension of your IT team. So, and as we've been doing this for years, we go up the stack now, right? So we can do SQL DBA services for customers if they like us to do that for them. But those are the big differentiators, I would say, that we take really good care of the customers. I think in doing that, our partner community sees that as well. And they feel very comfortable and that they can trust and bring their customers to RapidScale. And, nothing is better than customer referral. And we still get a fair share of those, right? Where a customer says, hey, you might want to help my buddy Tom down the street. He's in a similar situation to what I was in, and I think you guys might be a really good solution for him. So when we talk about protecting data, and again, I think this is the key that every IT leader, and to be fair, business leader is worried about today. They're worried about protecting their data, and especially if they've got customer data on there, if they have PPI on there, if they're in a regulatory or compliance-driven industry, right? All of these things now have very negative factors if you get breached or if you have a security incident. at RapidScale, we use best of breed, right? We use best of breed partners to do this. We're a really big Fortinet shop on our cloud firewalls and our firewalls. We're in the Velo Cloud VMware SD-WAN space, and we're SASE is the big buzzword today, right? And we've got a lot of the components of SASE completed, and again, this is going to that same customer and saying, hey, if you want to move to RapidScale, we can provide you all of these additional insurances, if you will, or just you're going to be even more protected than you would be having not gone to this. And I think more importantly, you're doing it with people who are experts in this space. So you don't need to go out and hire somebody who understands SASE and CASB and all that fun stuff, right? You bring it to us and we'll help you do it. Again, an extension of your IT team. And when you start talking to those customers and understanding, what does a security incident mean to them? I've had plenty of customers who have been on the fence with buying our email security product set, which is Mimecast. We're Mimecast's largest MSP worldwide, so we're really proud of that relationship. We have a very good working relationship with Mimecast. We had, true story, we had a customer. He was the director of IT or VP of IT. And he was trying to get his boss to approve putting Mimecast in front of their O365 environment. And it was a budgetary issue, right? Back and forth. Months went by. And all of a sudden I got the phone call. Or my cloud solution consultant got the phone call and pulled me into it. They had an incident. They had a breach. They had ransomware. And now he's saying to me, help me fix this, help me remedy it. And I'm like, it's really hard for me to help you remedy it from a post-apocalyptic impact.
Sure.
Had you been working with me before, I promise you I could have had a lot of safeguards in place for you, but I don't. So we'll help you get there, but we'll protect you going forward. And it was sad that the CFO, who had been the kind of the stick in the sand, who wasn't moving, he came back on, and he wanted to negotiate price again. And I kind of said to him, how much did this just cost you?
Right.
And he's like, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm like, and you want to negotiate like $2 on 600 licenses. Let's see the forest through the trees, and let's get you protecting, get you taken care of.
That's a great point. As you're talking about, I'm just kind of thinking in my own world, and just everything from security aspects and stuff like that too. I think also to a lot of leaders, it's the game of playing. I know I played this game too as well, to where you're always looking to. I think any IT staff, they're always considered mostly understaffed. For the most part, in any organization you talk about, either where it's like trying to do like a SQL administrator, security admin, whatnot, right? So I think a lot of IT firms use this strategy of looking out to other services until it becomes to a point that it reaches a certain dollar limit. Then they take that dollar limit and then they use that to hire another body.
Yes.
And
yes.
it's the game that we play. Like, okay, well, I get this much budget at least, and then to the point, okay, now, hey, this is whatever, $60,000-$70,000. I'm going to use that to get another body, and then that way, that person's going to be, the person that my missing link to whatever my DBA or my network admin or my system admin, and that such. That's been the approach I think a lot of people have been using for years. I think in today's world, that doesn't work as good as it did in the past, because there's just so many different areas of where you have gaps and holes in your department.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, man. I mean, again, you've been doing this 15 years. If you and I go in the time machine and we go back 15, 20 years, you had a Microsoft engineer, you had a mail engineer, you had a SQL engineer, you had system admins. I mean, you had a person for every piece of your IT. That's how IT got built into enterprise and mid-market. And, I won't say into the larger SMB for sure, but not obviously down into the smaller SMB. That's where the MSPs came into play.
Sure.
But what happened in that transition? And I kind of tie these things to like events that we saw happen, like big recessions and things like that, right? When all of a sudden you go back to the recession that we had in the housing market, the big crash, and we had a lot of people losing their jobs, and you had to cut corners wherever you could. And I think IT staffs got hit really hard during that point in time, just like everybody else did. And we went to this idea of generalist, right? I'm going to have somebody who knows a whole lot, knows a little bit about a whole lot, and who can get me to where I need to go. We got out of that expertise focus on that. And I think when you start looking at, where IT is today and the future of IT, if I can outsource for that expertise and I can get it at a price that is, fair for the market and works within my budget. And when I'm doing that, if we start thinking about an IT leader space, if I can do that and I have a bench of people who can fulfill that need, right? Now we start looking at the challenges of internal human capital, right? To your point, I can go hire that SQL DBA until she wants to go on vacation for a month to Europe. Now what am I going to do? Or until he decides, hey, I'm out of here. I'm taking off next week and I'm a bad employee. I'm not even going to give you 2 weeks notice. I'm just going to give you my resignation letter and walk out the door, right? And then that IT leader is sitting there going, what do I do now, right? I'm stuck. I think if we can outsource any service and we can get a higher level of service and competency, it makes sense to do it. If we can't, we can't. And again, it depends on the business, the industry, the size of the business, the number of employees, the budgets, all those things come into play. We have a lot of our partners in the community today who are, working, doing CISO services for customers, because that is a requirement today, right? And that's an expensive body to fill.
Very
you
much.
Go hire him or her and put him in or her in place. You're not spending a couple of bucks. You're making a big investment. I don't care if you're in Orange County, California, or Raleigh, North Carolina. You're spending some money for that talent.
Well said. Yeah, absolutely.
Those of us who have chosen this as our career and where we're going, technology isn't slowing down. It's going to continue to crank and grow to things that we don't even imagine it is today. I'm going to be real interested to see you and I doing a podcast in 2030. And what will we be talking about in 2030? And then let's compare it to 2023 and say, man, were we spot on, or boy, were we wrong?
So when 2020 and 2030, when we're doing holograms and recording off of that and being able to have that, then yeah, we'll be able to say that's the X evolution. Like, remember when we thought about it's this little tiny computer? No, now it's holograms and like all that. That'd
wild,
be great.
Man, wild.
Well, Mark, I appreciate you taking the time today to chat with us and sit down. Great talking to you. Great getting to meet you. Great learning about RapidScale. Any last notes that you would like to give?
Yeah, just I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the acquisition of LogicWorks by Cox Business, our the company that holds RapidScale within Cox Communications. So for a very long time, we've been talking about how do we get into the hyperscaler market, the public cloud market, you name it as you will. And we see this as a tremendous opportunity for ourselves, for our partners who distribute with us. We are now going to be able to serve the entire portfolio, if you will, to businesses of all sizes. And we're super excited about doing that. So a lot will be coming out from RapidScale and Cox Business about the LogicWorks acquisition. It literally is, fresh off the presses, man. It's only like 2 weeks old right now.
Breaking news. I love it. Giving it up.
We got a lot of people working on integration and on all of these good things, but so that's like RapidScale. What's the future? Well, we've got a partner that we're owned by the same company, right? And we are going to be able to go to our customers in a single threaded fashion and say, hey, we know you need all of these things done in AWS and Azure, et cetera. We can now fulfill that. And if you need anything in the private cloud world, we can still fulfill that, and vice versa, right? So those real exciting times coming out from RapidScale. Keep your ears to the rail you'll see a whole lot of stuff being published and press releases and all that good stuff. But love to talk to you in another year and tell you how that acquisition has gone.
That is awesome. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to read up more about it. Definitely look forward out to new news of that acquisition. Mark, again,
fantastic.
I appreciate you coming on. It was great talking to you today. And yeah, we'll have another podcast to catch up on when we have holograms in the future.
Thanks, James. Appreciate your time, man. Great to meet you as well.
Thank you, sir.